Okay.
Still trying to stream.
Okay. Says it's being live streamed.
Okay.
There's a online ticker that loads it, so it'll flood, but it'll load it.
Okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, it is.
We are good to go.
All right. I will call to order this February 12th, 2026 meeting of the Moab City Planning Commission at 6:04 p.m. In attendance this evening, we have city staff Kelsey Garcia, Johanna Blanco, Corey Shirtleff, Alexi Lamb, our city council liaison, Miles Lofton, former planning commissioner, and from the planning commission member, we have our new member, Steve McClure. Welcome.
Thank you.
Myself, Kai Marienfeld, Jill Tatton, and then Shaylee Bryant is joining us remotely. Awesome. Yay. We have our new planning commission member, so let's welcome him. First item of business is citizens to be heard. I don't think we got anything for citizens to be heard. Are you all here for an item on the agenda? Okay, great. All right. Oscar Niehaus, present. All right. First item of business is approval of our minutes from our last meeting, which was way back at the beginning of January. That was January 8th. If Shaylee and Jill, if y'all have had a chance to look that over, if there's any corrections, we'll have to do without Eagle Eye Carolyn today.
I like that. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, same. So we can entertain a motion. Steve, you were not at that meeting, but it is okay to vote yay or nay or abstain. It's totally up to you. It's really just we're voting to make sure that the minutes accurately reflect what the meeting was.
Thank you.
Shaylee or Jill, I will entertain a motion if you'd like.
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 8th, 2026 meeting.
All right.
I second it.
And a second from Shaylee. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving our minutes from the January 8th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Minutes approved 4-0. All right, next we have a public hearing this evening, which is a public hearing consideration and possible recommendation of Moab City Council Ordinance 2026-03, an ordinance enacting section 15.08.011 under Title 15, Chapter 15.08 of the Moab Municipal Code to adopt the 2006 edition of the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code. This is item 4 on our agenda. What we will do is we will open the public hearing, have our presentation from city staff, have discussion, leave the public hearing open until we're done with that, if that works for staff. Okay, I will open the public hearing at 6:07 p.m. Hi, Alexi.
Hello.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I am Alexi Lamb, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Sustainability. And what my plan is to go through, some of this will be familiar from previous presentations, but to just go through the basics of what this is a hearing for. And I would be happy to answer questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to try opening the presentation again.
Wouldn't be a planning commission meeting without technical difficulties.
We didn't have a blank presentation. Okay, looks like it's working now. Okay, here it is. So the first thing we have here is kind of the history of this. So specifically, we're talking about meeting the requirements of House Bill 48. It was signed by the governor in March. However, a lot of the preparation for implementing it took up a lot of the year, and it wasn't until October that it was being reviewed here at the city. In that time, we consulted with the city attorney, attended a public meeting with Forest Fires, State Lands in November. The state of Utah posted their high risk map in December of this year. And we had a couple planning commission discussions prior to that because I think it was released mid to late month. Then in January, we were starting to get a better grasp on all of the maps that were available. We'll go over some of those tonight. Discussed it with Moab Valley Fire Department, Grand County Emergency Management, REM to REM, in addition to the attorney. And then meanwhile, we were also doing other fire preparedness stuff with the plan. Now, in February, we're actually considering the required code. I'll talk a little bit more about those requirements. And if possibly recommended, this will eventually go to City Council. So to start with, what this is about, with fires in urban areas throughout the country, the state legislature was concerned about danger in the wildland urban interface, which is the intersection of things that are very flammable and natural, and also things that are flammable and urban, which creates risk in urban areas. So that's where HB 48 came from. And then it outlined a number of responsibilities. What we're focused on in particular is the responsibilities of the city. We are required to adopt their version of a 2006 code. That is something that we need to do. What we are allowed to decide is where it applies. So the code is set and the things in it. I'll talk a little bit about what's in it. And then we are also considering what kind of application we want of this, like for the code. So the code, this is a summary. It's, I think, a 38-page building code. So it requires new construction to use fire-rated materials, provide water supply and access, establish defensible space, especially this would require landscaping to be compliant, and managing vegetation. Existing construction get pulled into this if they start changing things. So building new additions or construction, updating a roof, some other things like adding fire arresters to fireplaces, establishing the defensible space around the building, and also monitoring unsafe conditions and changing those. So those are the primary things that this code would do. And from there, we get to decide where to apply it. So there's different tools that we have. This code is one of them. It is a pretty high barrier or pretty high threshold for people to comply in terms of cost and time and other things that like resources to come into compliance. So that's the state code. There are also options to do things like a city code or education. They wouldn't necessarily be in place, but in addition to the state code. And then we get to decide where those things apply. So some places might be high risk, and that's where we would see the highest fire danger, and they might merit the most preparation. Moderate risk, somewhere in the middle, and then some places might be lower risk and need less intervention. So from here, we go to the maps. There are several maps. I'm going to just show you a few of them. This is the one that the state adopted for our high risk areas. So the state is going to use this map for what was in that previous slide is state responsibilities. We are not required to use this map. And in fact, when we met with the fire department, REM to REM, emergency management, and there's a general consensus that this map is not accurate to where our actual fire risk is. This is those areas and also the structural exposure score from the state. As far as their recommendations, I think that for things that are at higher risk on this map are things that we should designate. But again, there's consensus this is not really accurate for the level of risk that we see. And based on requests from previous planning commissions meetings, our GIS specialist, Nick, put together a historic fire map. So this is where we're actually experiencing fire risk or fire danger in the past, it does not align with the risk map that we saw from the state. And in our recently adopted community wildfire preparedness plan, this was the map that Rim to Rim put together, which aligns better with where we actually have seen fires, which is along the creek and in the slough. So that is a long way to get around to our recommendation for what to put on a map for the application of the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code is not to identify any properties at this time in the city limits, and to continue to do some research and discussion on what levels of preparedness are appropriate for different areas in the city. But at this time, and in consultation with other stakeholders in the community, we don't think it's appropriate right now for anywhere in Moab.
So have the code, but no actual maps or.
Yeah,
properties
essentially a
identified.
blank map for now. It is recommended that we continuously update this from the state. They recommend every 3 years. We could do it as often as we want. So if we decide that is appropriate at different locations, then we can always update the map.
Sounds good. Oops, I think it says 2006.
It is a 2006 code.
Oh, it is. Okay,
Yeah, they
well,
have not updated. My understanding is that there is an update to the code coming up soon. But they have not updated the code. And that also might be something we would consider. If the state updates the code, it might then be better matched to the kind of risk that we're seeing in Moab.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the presentation. All right, anything else from staff? Corey, Johanna, anybody? Additions? All right. So, in our packet, on the agenda summary, there's a background, list of exhibits, and then there'll be a recommended motion, which is very nice of staff to write that out for us. Who did that? So when we have something on the agenda, having the recommended motion is nice. You can always amend that, make changes as we see fit based on discussion. But yeah, we're still in the public hearing right now for what Alexi just presented for this potential adoption of a new ordinance enacting the Wildland Urban Interface Code. Any comments from anyone, Jill?
No, it
Thoughts?
was very well presented.
Yeah, so Shaylee?
No, ma'am.
Sorry, I said no.
No, we could see you.
Okay.
Yeah, same, we discussed this at previous meetings. I think your explanation for why we're not adopting any specific, or identifying any specific properties makes sense so far. Not to say that there aren't things, but I do think it is, like a flood zone, like any sort of high risk classification. I do think we should be extremely careful before identifying properties that applies to, because that obviously will have an impact on property owners. So yeah, I think it makes sense to me. Anyone want to make I will actually close the public hearing now at 6:17 p.m. and then we can continue discussion or hear a potential motion and move on. Jill?
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Right.
I move to oops, I better put that a little closer. Positively recommend approval of the Moab City Council Ordinance 2026-03, an ordinance enacting section 15.08.011 under Title 15, Chapter 15.08 of the Moab Municipal Code to adopt the 2006 edition of the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code.
Fabulous. All right, we have a motion from Jill. Is there a second?
I said, oh, go ahead.
He beat you to it, Jen.
He did. So fast.
Okay, we have a motion from Jill, second from Steve. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that was an aye from Shaylee as well. All right, motion passes 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Moving along, and thank you, Alexi. Okay, our first action item of the evening, which is 5.1. Consideration and possible approval of planning resolution number 03/2026. That's confusing. It's a resolution and the ordinance we just did was the same number. Resolution 03/2026, a resolution approving a preliminary plat for the Amasa Apartments for property located at 57 Cane Creek Boulevard, Moab, Utah, 84532. All right. Who is Johanna? Are you presenting on this? Excellent. All right, take it away.
Okay, we might remember this project from their DA recommendation that we just had at our last meeting. This is at 57 West Cane Creek. Property owner is Amasa Holdings. We are in the R3 zone. A little background on this. Amanda Dillon, our applicant, submitted the townhome plat application in September. It's been going through DRT review. And through the development agreement that we just recommended, a custom process of approval has been established that makes you guys the approval body. So this custom process looks like the preliminary plans and plats come to you all for approval, and then the final plans and plats are administratively approved through the planning coordinator. And then if there are any amendments to the preliminary, it will come back to you guys. So now you can reference your hard copies. The hard copy is what we will be hoping to approve today, not what was in your packets.
Okay.
Differences include from what was in your packet. There's a slight change in the note under the legend. Word change from something to it escapes me now.
Yes, it's regarding the public utility easement and the mechanism for the plat. Sorry,
Please.
Public utility easement being dedicated on the plat itself through that mechanism in the final plat, but it needs to obviously be represented as well on the preliminary across the board and consistently with that. A few minor changes in the specific language from occupied to dedicated, which is I think appropriate. And then additionally that well, I'll let you go on. That was the note change.
Thank you for jogging my memory. And then also in the plat in your packet, the note said anything not occupied by buildings or roads is part of this public utility easement. Now we are showing the buildings and roads that are going to be built so that those are excluded from the public utility agreement. Everybody who is party to that easement has now approved that change. Okay, so this preliminary plat meets all the standards in our subdivision code. The matrix of approval was included in your packet. And they've also been working through the DRT rounds of review. So not only is their preliminary plat ready, their final plat is ready.
All right.
We'll be approving that right after you guys are done with your decision. And that is the end of my briefing. We do have the applicants here, or if you have any more questions for me.
I don't have any questions. Straightforward. And this has been a long time coming. Do y'all want to come up and if there's anything to add? Or if we have questions, it's often nice to hear from the applicants. Pull an extra chair.
Another chair.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Whatever. Yeah, give him the hard one.
So I told, sorry, my name is Ivan Carroll.
Hi.
I'm working with Moss Apartments. Amanda Dillon had an event at home today, so she couldn't make it. This is Claudia Loiza. I told Claudia earlier today that even if we don't need to present anything, I do want it publicly known that we have put these guys through the ringer, and they have been troopers. Doing affordable housing is always a difficult thing. Having to work in a multi-phase project with multiple lenders and investors is a nightmare for anybody. It includes way too many attorneys that constantly want to change things. And Corey and Johanna and Nathan have been amazing to help out. So I want that publicly known to the city that they're awesome. And that's really all I had to say for tonight, but happy to answer questions.
I appreciate the kudos for our staff who are excellent. And I also don't ever want too many attorneys. I am an attorney. Let's see. Any questions from anyone for the applicants or comments? Shaylee, Steve, Jill?
No, with the presentation, whenever that was,
Yeah. It's great to
pretty clear.
see the layout of what it's
Mhm.
finally gonna look like. It's exciting. I know that you all went to great lengths to work with the adjacent property owners in the neighborhood. I have friends and family that live over in that area, and they all spoke highly of how you all informed the community and involved them. And I think that this is sort of hopefully a case study about how density and affordable housing are not the issue that people have. It's the community involvement perspective that
Yeah.
hopefully we're showing that people adjacent properties don't have an issue with this kind of development. It's really just the process. And so thank you all for going to that link. I know that added probably many more steps on top of what you were already doing, but hopefully it helped prevent some issues or controversy along the way. So thank you. I think it was really worth it. And I'm excited to see this project move forward. I will note, and we noted this last time we talked about this project as well, that Shaylee and I are both on the board of the Moab Area Community Land Trust, which is the other half of your LIHTC application for the project. I know for apartments out at Arroyo Crossing, that is not a financial interest, but that is an interest that we have. So I feel comfortable just noting that for the record. I don't think we need to recuse ourselves under our rules, but I just wanted that noted for the record. That we do have involvement as board members with MACLT with the other component of this project. So Shaylee, anything to add? Does that work for you?
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly.
All right. Yeah, so we've got the preliminary plat. As usual, in the agenda summary, there is a recommended motion. If someone would like to take a crack at it.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to move. I move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve planning resolution number 03-2026, a resolution approving a preliminary plat for the Amasa Apartments for property located at 57 Cane Creek Boulevard, Moab, Utah, 84532.
All right, we have a motion from Jill. Is there a second?
I second it. Sorry.
right.
I was like, I don't know. We're gonna beat
She
each
was
other.
ready that time. All right, we've got a motion from Jill, a second from Shaylee. Any further discussion or questions for our applicants? I'm really excited to see this project.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see this project happening.
And we're excited to get it going. Been
Yeah.
a long time coming.
In such an important spot. They're already, and just the phasing, everything. I just can't speak highly enough for how you guys plan this. I think it's very cool. All right. All in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye. Aye. All right. The preliminary plat is approved 4-0. Moving on to the next item, which is also you guys, if you want to stay at the dais, is 5.2. Consideration and possible approval of planning resolution number 02-2026, A resolution approving a preliminary site plan for the Amasa Apartments for property located at 57 Cane Creek Boulevard, Moab, Utah 84532. Back to you.
Okey doke. We've got something very, very similar, so I'm gonna skip through what we just talked about. This process started when they submitted their site plan application in August. Again, it's been through DRT review. We're ready to approve their final, and we have the same custom approval process that has delivered this preliminary plan to you guys today. Here we have the preliminary plan, and this one is exactly the same as what was in your packet. It meets all the standards set out in our site plan code. And that is it.
Okay. That was easy. All right. Any other comments about the site
You're
plan?
on the mic. I'll switch.
Yeah. give us a-
No, I think that the only thing we wanted to note here was I know that the city has just passed a EV charging ordinance, I think as of a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month now.
Yep.
But the site is striving for net zero. So we will have at least 2 active EV chargers and then 2 additional that will be ready to build. And a solar array that is going to be large enough to offset over 100% of the energy usage. So we're looking forward to, just the potential of being able to contribute to the grid and make it a more resilient site. I think that's the one thing that we meant to share last time that we didn't get to as much. So it's special for us, obviously, for continuing to build carbon neutral. But I think for a place like Moab, especially, we're trying to leave things better than we found it. So
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, especially because that does not apply to them as they
Right.
were vested
Correct.
prior to the ordinance.
Yeah.
passing. So well done. I love seeing that. That's great. Cool. Thank you for noting that. I was not aware. All right. Straightforward. Once again, we had our plat, we have our site plan. Who would like to make a motion?
Go ahead, Jill.
Okay. Alrighty, I move that the City of Moab Planning Commission conditionally approve planning resolution number 02-2026, a resolution approving a preliminary site plan for the Amasa Apartments for property located at 57 Cane Creek Boulevard, Moab, Utah 84532.
All right, we have a motion from Jill. Is there a
Wait,
second?
Did I miss something?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Did you say?
have you redo that. I
Oops.
have accidentally left a conditionally in there. It's just a
Not- and it's not
resolution.
Oh, there,
approving.
I'm like, did I
Pardon.
read that?
Yep.
So just take the conditionally out?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll try that again. I
Okay.
move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve planning resolution number 02-2026, a resolution approving a preliminary site plan for the Amasa Apartments for property located at 57 Cane Creek Boulevard, Moab, Utah 84532.
Nice. All right, we have a motion from Jill. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a second from Steve. Like this. Any discussion or questions for the applicants while we've got them here? No. All right. All in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Preliminary site plan passes 4-0. Thank you all so much. Good luck with the next steps.
thank you.
It's happening.
Thank you.
Okay, now
This is where we
Yes.
insert.
I actually remembered. I'm
Oh,
impressed with myself.
yes, this one. No,
So
All right,
You'll-
this one, where is that?
here,
Okay.
let me find that. Johanna addendum, there it is. Okay, there was an addendum to our previous agenda. We are adding an item. This is now going to be item 1 on the addenda as it's identified, which we are putting
Yeah.
after action items 5.1 and 5.2. which is consideration and possible, and we're back to you guys. Sorry, I dismissed you early. My apologies. Consideration and possible recommendation of approval of a phase 1 development agreement for 57 West Cane Creek Boulevard, parcel 0100010200 between Amasa Apartments LLC and the city of Moab, Utah. So this is the same property in question as the last two items, inserting it between agenda items 5.2 and 5.3.
Okay,
We're ready.
yes, so this has been public noticed as a public hearing. It didn't make it on the addendum that it was a hearing with formatting that was challenging, and that's why it's also 1.1 on there. But this is a public hearing as well.
Was that noticed as a public hearing?
10 days ago.
Separately.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't love that. But if we're meeting requirements.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, noting that this is a public hearing, even though it's not written that way on our agenda.
So I guess there's two items, and given the pre-noticing and then later noticing, sorry to jump in, is through the state, we've noticed sufficiently for the public hearing element, and then the action item, which usually are joined on your agenda. But as this was brought in through as an addendum, we will typically show those on your agenda separately. But they have been sufficiently noticed according to the state,
Okay,
but it is clunky the way the addendum and our agenda match up. So it would be, I think, appropriate to open the public hearing, have presentation, close public hearing, and then commence to what would be the action item,
okay,
as opposed to the opening of the public hearings. If that
Got
makes sense.
that makes sense.
It's all standard practice, but you're right. It is
Okay,
showing
cool.
up.
I just want to make sure that we're
You're right.
totally above board with everything. I understand mistakes happen. I too. I don't know how you guys manage all this stuff, frankly. Okay, great. That said, I will open the public hearing on this item. Consideration and possible recommendation of the phase 1 development agreement for the Amasa Apartments at 6:36 p.m. We can have a presentation from staff while the public hearing is open.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are still at 57 West Cane Creek. As you remember, our global, in the document mentioned omnibus, original, anywhere you like to slice it, the development agreement that has already been approved was done so on January 27th. And in that agreement, there's provisions that give the applicant the option to negotiate a subsequent DA for each of the 3 phases. When a subsequent DA is agreed upon, the lots that are assigned to that phase will be pulled from that global DA. And then they have their own set special agreement that will be recorded when their plat is recorded. So that's what we're doing tonight. Recommending to City Council approval for this subsequent phase 1 DA. So the city concessions in this DA are a reduction of 5 feet from the 15-foot setback in the R3 zone, and a waiver of the active employment household requirements that are normally required in the R3 zone in exchange for 50 units that are deed restricted.
Got it.
So as said before, in the original DA, this process of subsequent DAs was outlined and approved. The differences between these two DAs are there's different parties. First DA was between the city and Amasa Holdings. This agreement is between the city and Amasa Apartments LLC. There's a section in there that removes the lots assigned to phase one, removes them from the previous agreement, and now they stand alone in this agreement. Oh yes, and all the process of approving the preliminary plan plat, it's all past tense now and in the recital section. We are still working a little bit. I got some news a couple hours ago that maybe this is pretty settled now, but we're still working on language around sharing of common spaces and tying all the project phases together as they are inseparable, even if they have these separate agreements. And then our approved final plat and plan could not have been inserted beforehand because they weren't approved yet. Now we can insert those after approval. Yeah, so these two last bullets will still need to be worked on and are going to be different than what is in your packet currently, but you still could make a recommendation to City Council to approve this agreement, given that we're going to come to a conclusion, both parties, on these things.
Got it.
Okay. So like I said, City Council is going to be the approval body on this. And then when phase two comes, we'll be coming back likely for a subsequent DA for phase two, as well as phase three.
Got it. Good job with that explanation.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm just sort of like, so you basically had a programmatic DA that the city council approved already, and this is like the site specific under that to put it in NEPA terms. All right.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense to me. I think the terms of the development agreement certainly make sense. We're getting assurances similar to the reasons that we have the AEH in place. And then also front setbacks, I think is something, the street adjacency, I think that's fine as long as visibility is maintained for drivers and people on the street. But I think things that pull it farther away from the neighboring neighborhood makes sense. So there's my reasoning. Let's see, do we have a recommended motion?
Well, so it does feel a little like convoluted, like we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And we're trying to recommend approval when we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yes.
Like, is there a reason? Like, I mean, I know they want to get started on this project, but do we want to move forward with a recommendation prior to having some of these things answered? I mean, where does that leave us
I might
when
speak
we're
to
like
that. And then
still in
maybe-
negotiation?
Yeah, no, I'd love to speak to some of those elements, and then maybe we could even invite the applicants to speak to it a little bit if they want to as well. But essentially, is where we're at with this DA, which is, in all intensive terms, subsequent certainly, but also a bit to an extent, and not to be derogatory in this way, but superfluous in that the global DA, the omnibus DA, was intact. Basically, that was everything that the city needed was complete within that agreement. So the election for the project to move and advance this phase specific DA, which has some components where it, in essence, and if you read through the terms of that agreement, ejects it in a sense from the global. Well, that creates what in this group is tired of me talking about this, but we're getting to a basically counter compelling positions that the premise of us needing to maintain the overall entitlements of the site require everything stays tied. Yet from an investing and lending standpoint, it's essential that it is separated in its own right. So we're pulling apart at the seams of that. This DA navigates that for them. So that essentially with the negotiations we've had, we've ensured that it is replicated in all ways the city maintains, and then also for the matter, the lack of third-party beneficiary that would be housed like a typical HOA is otherwise represented by the conditions of this agreement. So there will be that entity, but they're not beholden to them outright. That are specified definitions. So to Shaylee's point, it's not so much that I think at this point we're bringing this to you in the sense of there aren't the pieces in place. It is the minutia of language in some of these sections. And I think we gave you guys a clean draft, which had basically the proposal from the applicants with what you're seeing is just cleanly incorporated language revisions from our attorney. So you're just seeing clean. It hasn't been fully adopted by them, which is why it's not, we're considering it fully. It may amend slightly.
Yeah.
Is they're confirming those amendments, but I think as of today, it is confirmed.
Yeah, as of 2 hours ago, I haven't changed this presentation or
So
have my brain caught up, but
it has
yes, they
been
have accepted our
down to the minute, which is why we came. So this, what you're seeing, you have the entirety of the puzzle. This is it. It will not change from this point forward, unless, I mean, maybe it could, but they would have to go before council and justify why it's different than the recommended version you're seeing. So it is absolutely convoluted and is absolutely one of the most complex documents I've worked on. This team that was not kidding when we've been, I mean, Johanna's on at the call at 7 a.m. this morning. We were on calls and emails through the night. We're really trying to get this done because timing is absolutely of the essence. And if we miss this threshold for this DA to be approved, or at least recommended to get council's approval before March, throws them into a whole series of financial implications of delaying another month from their lending rates. So I hope that helps fill in the blanks of this is atypical where we've definitely bypassed our standards. However, in this instance, this project is calling for us to go above and beyond that way to get it done in a timely manner for them.
Yep. Shaylee, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I feel like that makes more sense now. I just was like, why are we in a hurry? I mean, I know that we want to
Right.
get it done, but yeah, it just felt like we moving it without all the information, but I get it.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense to me as well. And we'll likely see phase 2 at some point, still under the global DA or sectioned out as well.
Yeah, likely sectioned out.
Cool. If you want to pop that recommended motion back up there. Okay. And this is a recommendation to City Council because they are the final authority on this. Excellent. Jill?
Oh yes, good memory.
Let's close the public hearing.
Oh yeah, you're right. We're in a public hearing. Gosh. Oh, my brain. All right. Thank you, Jill. Madam Vice Chair, appreciate it. All right. I will close the public hearing at 6:47 p.m. Thank you for the reminder. Okay.
Okay, I will now then make a motion to forward a positive recommendation of the approval of Phase 1 Development Agreement for 57 West Concrete Boulevard, parcel 01-0001-0200 between Amasa Apartments LLC and the City of Moab, Utah.
Okay, we have a motion from Jill. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, a second from Shaylee. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Thank you all for the explanation. Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. Now we're done with you. All right, thank you. And hopefully that how we were doing that made sense to the public as well. Okay, moving on now to item 5.3. Consideration and possible approval of planning resolution 04/2026, a planning resolution approving the landscaping special exception request for property at 985 South Main, Moab, Utah, 84532. This is the Maverick gas station. And looks like we have someone from Maverick on Zoom joining us. Welcome. All right. Johanna, we're ready.
Okie doke. This is the South Maverick at 985 South Main. Our applicant today is Sarah Beckman. So the Maverick applied for a building permit to expand its freezer. Any building permit that is not an internal renovation triggers a general landscaping plan. When I was reviewing their general landscaping plan, everything looks perfect, except for their required number of street trees. Given their street frontage, they are required to have 19. On their plan, they have 13 trees that are either existing or are gonna be provided. So today they're asking for an exception to 6 street trees. Here we can see their enormous frontage on 2 fairly busy streets. One are most busy, and then 400 East. I think we're all kind of familiar with this area. So I'll move on. Here you can see all of their existing and proposed trees as blobs on this one. Okay, so their narrative, if you had time to read, goes into pretty much obstructing visibility. They have a number of turn-ins, they're right on a corner. And for those reasons, along with our code section stating that you cannot have a tree within 10 feet of a driveway or an intersection, it really limits where they can place a tree. So I think they've done a good job trying. And this is all the code sections that apply here. We got 1 street tree every 40 feet. They've got 760 feet of frontage, which gives them 19 trees. And then that third bullet down is our regulations on where trees can be planted that's limiting them. And then the 4th bullet down is you guys have the right to grant an exception. Alternatively, we can grant an exception, or we can do a fee in lieu situation for the trees. And that is my briefing.
I like it. Is there a staff recommendation about which one of those makes the most sense, or?
Not stated.
It's primarily a safety issue.
I'd say.
As someone who's almost been hit like 4 times in the Maverick parking lot, just really got to whip your toy trailer around as fast as humanly possible. The corner there. Yeah, that's definitely a safety concern. I think visibility being worse. And there's already, I mean, it's a property that has a lot of street frontage, I think is why there's so many required, and there's already a lot on site. It's not like there's 2 trees and they're asking for an exception for 15. So, I do think it's in keeping with the general purpose of the code, which was we don't
Mhm.
want heat islands, we don't want big chunks of pavement without some vegetative cover breaking it up.
Mhm.
So, as far as fee in lieu, our standard in the past, can you remind me what we've done in the past when we've given exceptions for street trees? I know we've done that a couple times. I know we did that with the water treatment plant, right? Wasn't that one?
May have been one. I'm thinking there was more recently a residential property we
Uh-huh.
received it. Fortunately, yeah. Well, Alexi's left us.
Darn it.
The nice institutional memory on that one. Um, I can't think of how we've framed our precedent for those.
Yeah, I'm just interested in keeping with
Mm-hmm.
what we've done.
Can
in
you
the
maybe,
past.
if you'd indulge, what would be the factors you're looking to just to navigate within
Mhm.
that? Is with these guys and under the circumstances that they're applying the exception, is it that we're looking, I guess, what is the question? What would you,
The question is if we grant some sort of exception or deviation, is it appropriate to just grant a blanket exception saying,
so waiver,
oh, yeah,
essentially a waiver in
Yep.
lieu of a fee in lieu?
correct, yeah,
And from my perspective, I think we have that, but I don't know if we actually have enough precedents to say we've done it this way or can follow it.
Yeah.
But in practice, what I would seem would be appropriate is where instances of the exception are where the standards, and it gets dangerous when I describe it this way, but we possibly run afoul of a regulatory takings element of
Yep.
basically we're prohibiting you from advancing with your use because our regulations don't actually work, given that we're requiring you to have certain widths of access for your commercial standards, yet you've applied trees at every possible interval you can to our standards, yet you still don't come up.
Yep.
Versus another
Yes.
property that's their design is elective, made it.
Yeah.
Consequently, the fee and lieu may seem
Or
more
maybe just
appropriate.
on the ground, anyone can see like this probably doesn't make sense, but it's not like there's two sections of code that are butting up against each other.
So for me, that's usually
Yep.
what I would measure these
I
against.
think
Is
that is a good indication of where my head's at as well. This is not just like, hey, we're realizing that like this is too many trees and you maybe can't see around the corner. It's like city code says that you
Mhm.
can't have trees where you would need to have trees on the site. And I think that makes sense.
um,
With that in mind, I feel like the factors maybe way in the other direction would be that this is a large commercial property. It is not an individual residence homeowner where maybe that a small fee in lieu would be onerous to them or their project. This would be something where it might make sense to have a fee in lieu in
Mhm.
other instances.
Mhm.
Just stating that for the record.
I think
think-
another is, sorry to interrupt, was this is an existing conditions
Yep.
exception versus a new construction, where
Yep.
again, you have some design flexibility.
Yep.
This is already in place and
Totally.
their building permit triggering it happens to also trigger this new review, whereas a new construction, usually there's ways to design into.
Yep.
So that's another maybe compelling argument towards a full exception versus the fee in lieu. But again, the fee in lieu, I think it's purposeful. It's in place to provide ability for the city to place the trees where we
Mhm.
need them at the intervals that we've adopted. But so it's a,
Yeah.
from a staff side, hard to say what, a hard recommendation would be.
I think because I see it as s- impossibility of site design with existing code, to me, that would lend itself to a complete waiver.
Mhm. Was there a request for a full waiver or what was it?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. And again, it's a smaller percentage. There's already a lot of mature trees on site, or maturing, I should say, however long the Maverick's been there. It's not like yes, 6 trees is not insignificant, but 6 trees and the balance of however many trees, 19?
Mm.
Yeah. 19 is still the smaller end of the percentage. So
So can I ask a question on these types of exceptions? Is there like, I know that and I'm sorry, I'm still super new to this. But is there a way to be like I know sometimes if people can't put in a sidewalk and they're asking for a waiver, that then we ask them to add funds to a future account that maybe we could add trees somewhere else and have
yeah,
some funding for it.
that's the fee in lieu.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
perfect. Thank you. I was just like
Yep.
trying to remember.
Yeah, and like totally, Shaylee, that's the fee in lieu. And again, I think there's good reason for that to keep with the code, basically saying we're looking at town holistically on balance. We want the whole town to meet our landscaping requirements. Maybe every individual property in isolation doesn't, but overall it does. I think that's in keeping with that, which is good. But yeah, I think like you said, Corey, my brain is it seems to sort of be a site constraint code, conflicting parts of code, and then also it's an existing property.
Yeah.
It's not a new development. What we were just
I just had an aha of one of the, my brain
Yes.
is starting to work kind of subconscious. One of the exceptions that we did grant was for a duplex. And if you recall, it was just on Biddle Lane. And when we were talking about that, it was more of it was a general landscaping, not street tree exception. But within that, it was basically saying, well, they are supplying the appropriate amount of plant material. It's just not within the regulatory area we would have otherwise required. They had it because of the compression of the development envelope, basically had the landscaping peel around the site. And as if we look at this landscaping plan, you can also see, well, they may not have all the street trees they have, but they do have additional vegetation and trees surrounding the site, which is again, the whole premise is to reduce heat island effect in the right of ways.
Yep.
The landscaping provisions should typically, through our buffering standards and screening standards, accommodate for intervals of trees around the site, but this wouldn't have been because it's commercial to commercial. So they wouldn't have had a buffering standard here.
Yep.
So in theory, you could also look at this as I don't know if you make it a factor of your approval as, hey, let's make sure those trees don't go away tomorrow. We're factoring those 5 into this calc, and potentially even the other internal trees as, hey, we're reallocating our designation, if you remember. So that was a precedent piece that isn't apples to apples, but the commission has looked at sites in this way before to a little bit more sophistication of, well, the regulatory area may be in one place, but we are acknowledging the overall site improvement.
No, totally. And I am acknowledging the fact that there are those 7 trees that are immediately surrounding the building, the main building. Aren't street trees, but I think are important to the site and keep with the reasons we have tree requirements.
So this is up to the commission, but an option of what you could think of, because you're balancing a full waiver versus a fee in lieu. Well, maybe a potential hybrid or modification, because that's when we've had to approach these, is a motion of modification, and the applicant can accept or reject that. Is we memorialize those trees as regulatory at this point, because otherwise they're elective and they could go away tomorrow. But you say, hey, we're willing to not require a fee in lieu in place of memorializing those trees as a regulatory tree, and will be adopted into approved plan. So that's a way you could balance those. It may be excessive. You may not feel the need to do that. You may feel just the full waiver, given the standards that they have, are sufficient, but just throwing some tools out for you guys.
Yeah. Because we do have the applicants online, I am curious if that would, really gum up your expansion plans if those trees that are adjacent to the building, which aren't on the street frontage, were to be essentially noted in whatever our exception might be, as sort of being part of the reason for the exception being approved, if we were to do that as a full waiver. So not have fee in lieu, but say something like grant the landscaping special exception, noting that the non-street trees in the development envelope will remain or something like that. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Sarah Beckman. I am the Special Projects Manager, and I have Becca with me as well. She's the Development Manager. I think that is a fair exception. Our biggest concern, like you guys have said, is safety. So even those new trees that we're proposing, if any of you feel that those are continued safety issues, we want to make sure that we're keeping that site as safe as possible. As you said, we've heard a lot of people struggle navigating that property. So we appreciate the opportunity to review and accept this, but we feel confident with the building trees as well that we would keep those in place.
Okay, that's great. I think that makes that easy. And yeah, to be clear, that the site issues I don't think are the trees. I think it's just people with tourist brain. So it's just people pulling out of pumps, frankly. So okay, thank you for that. Other planning commissioners, Shaylee, Steve, Jill, any thoughts or comments?
No, I think you've asked some great questions and it's been explained well.
I don't have an issue with it. I think the safety is key to me. That intersection of 400 is at an angle and there's just ugly things happen there. So less is more in my eyes.
Definitely. Shaylee, any final thoughts? Okay. Because I think I'm going to mess with our recommended motion, I will take a crack at it. Okay. Give me a second here.
As you're working towards that, thinking about that,
Yeah.
if we are going to memorialize the trees on the site, we'll want to make sure that we're specifying a specific plan as it's proposed, which could be the landscaping plan as shown in the packet. If there's trees in there that are to be excluded from this, we'll have to note that as well.
Okay.
So if we say all the trees except these, that works. Or you could say these 4 trees as expressed on this plan. Because again, there are some internal, and there are some peripheral.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any plans to do anything with any of the existing trees, right? So it would probably be accurate to just make a blanket.
Which would be okay. What I want us to be careful of is internal to the development envelope. Say they need to another expansion. They come back and now we have a fix where this tree is, don't you dare touch this tree.
Yeah.
And we have to now re-navigate an exception, come back to planning commission for them to remove a tree that maybe we weren't worried about right now.
Got it.
And maybe that's a fair check for them to have to come back.
Mhm.
If they choose to do that, it's gonna be a heavy.
Yeah, we could do by number rather than placement.
Sure, that could be the case. That's a
19 on the site.
Something of that. That could give some flexibility too. What I just don't want to do is pinch the developer that they have to go back for planning commission every time they want to touch.
So there's currently 19 on the site.
Yeah,
there are more.
There's a few.
Says 22.
Oh, sorry.
14, 15, 16, 17,
22 trees existing.
Yep.
18.
22 existing trees.
Okay.
19 would be required street trees, but there are only 13.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Or planned 13 as well.
Planned.
I'm overcomplicating this. I know, I'm trying to think the cleanest way to indicate.
I'm sorry, but this will help us greatly in the back of house. when
For
we
sure.
start
No, I get it.
having it clean like that.
Could you put the the aerial back up?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is their landscaping plan. I could just note that keeping with the landscaping plan as shown in the packet, right? Okay.
Right.
I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. Which is fine because they're at the point where they're not amending this anymore. Okay.
for the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, what we see, I mean, example, I'm sorry to belabor this. So you can see that most of these trees are periphery to parking. But in theory, the development envelope, they could expand and maybe get rid of those two that are immediate to the northwest off there. You see that those would be the two that very likely say, hey, we're going to expand the envelope. We're going to get rid of it. So identifying, hey, all the trees within this plan on the periphery, excluding these two, or you just say memorialized, it is there, and then they come back from commission if they want to amend the landscaping plan.
I think the former option makes the most sense. So saying all the trees currently indicated in their landscaping plan, with the exception of the two that are immediately northwest of the
that would be
building?
an option.
Okay.
Yeah, everything else seems to be either over and wouldn't call it recreation space. That'd be a little over or open space, but there is picnic tables on those that are to the southeast, and then those immediately to the north of the building are covering parking, so the canopy is again effectively being responsible what it should be. Those other two are the ones I think that's reasonable just to not include them at all. And then if they do want to do any of the other trees, of course they can, but they can come back before commission. Those two trees they could just not.
Okay. I move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve Planning Resolution 04/2026, a planning resolution approving the landscaping special exception request for property at 985 South Main Street, Moab, Utah 84532, with the added condition. Is it okay to call it a condition? No. With the
Modification.
With the modification that the applicant's exception is conditioned on I don't normally struggle.
Off now.
Yeah, I threw myself off.
Trees within the plan is kind of where you're save.
That trees currently indicated on the landscaping plan shown in the packet for the agenda today remain on site, with the exception of the two trees immediately northwest of the building. There it is. Yep.
So as a modification, we have
the modification.
We have the
excuse me.
applicant.
Oh, yeah, Becca, sorry.
No, you're okay. Thank you. And I'm Becca Cook-Rees. I'm the development manager on the same team that me and Soraya work together. And I appreciate y'all so much for going through this. It's fascinating to see how the city sees that we could potentially develop. One request that I would have just for the future of the site, this is an older building, which means that these trees are likely on the older side. If something happens in the future where a tree dies and we have to replace it, the idea of coming back to a planning commission, because now our positions of the trees are like marked in stone essentially without changing that's more of like a facilities maintenance issue, and I could see that potentially becoming a bigger issue than it needs to be. So I'm wondering if we could possibly amend the language just a teeny bit. Maybe we could, if there's two trees that you absolutely have to have in a specific place, I think that's totally fine, but maybe otherwise we can just put like a number of trees and like in the general area. I'm just kind of thinking long term about this, not necessarily what we're potentially going to develop. I don't foresee that happening, but just from the future of the health of this landscaping and potentially needing to replace something like that, I could see this becoming a really big problem in the future if the language is adapted too much or too precisely. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and that would lend me to return to the other option probably, which is just the number.
Sure.
So I'm gonna go back. Thank you for interrupting. Genuinely. I didn't want to get that whole motion out. Okay. We're at 19 trees.
Required.
Yep. Okay. All right, let me try this again. I move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve Planning Resolution 04/2026, a planning resolution approving the landscaping special exception request for property at 985 South Main Street, Moab, Utah 84532, with the modification that the applicant for the subject property will retain at all times 19 trees total on site, at least 19 trees total on site. That includes the required street trees as approved, with an exception for those 6 street trees that would otherwise be required. That should hopefully cover you guys. All right. There's my motion.
I second.
All right. We have I have a second from Steve. Any further discussion? Thanks for sticking with us, everybody.
And comment towards the point of order. I'm glad we did that. I'm glad Becca spoke up because that
Yeah.
was my next point, was going to say, as it's a modification, it needs to become an acceptable modification, or friendly amendment, if you will.
Yep.
So I'm glad it naturally occurred that way. So I'm glad we reset. So nothing beyond that is that this took the appropriate
And that
course.
captures the intent, I think, as
It
well.
does.
It was not that the trees need to stay exactly where they are. It was just like, hey, this is a
Yep.
large property. It needs X amount of trees.
Yep.
So,
And that, I think, does maintain the precedent the commission's had so far, at least in the most applicable
Yeah.
exception we've had to date.
okay, there's a motion from me, a second from Steve. If there's no further discussion, we can vote. All those in favor of the motion with the modification on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Soraya. Appreciate your input. Good luck with
Thank
the-
you all so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
good
you.
luck with the projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Some patient applicants today. All right, moving on. Our second to last, 5.4, consideration and possible approval of planning resolution number 05/2026, a planning resolution approving the parking special exception request for 1 parking space for the Bonjour Eating Establishment expansion on property located at 59 South Main Street, Moab, Utah, 84532. Johanna, back to you.
Okay, so we've got the Bonjour expansion, parking special exception. This is at 59 South Main in the Dewey's Plaza. And our applicant is Courtney. So again, the applicant submitted a building permit, which triggered this. They are expanding Bonjour into a little bit of what is currently Gallery Moab. So we are changing 423 square feet from Gallery Moab retail to Bonjour Eating Establishment. So retail and eating establishment have 2 different parking calculations. So down here, I have our calculations. With the expansion of Bonjour moving into some of Gallery Moab, we've got that 423 square feet divided by 200, which is the eating establishment calculation. And then we have the existing, the 423 divided by 300, which is the retail calculation. So when we find the difference, we get 0.7 spaces. So they are required to have 1 more space. And this request is for one space. Is everybody clear on the calculation side? Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Here we have we can see where they are if we don't know where Bonjour is and where the art studio is. And then up here we have a close-up of where the space is that they're changing hands. I believe now we're going to be able to access Bonjour from Main Street.
Cool.
Ooh.
Okay. So I was trying to figure out
Very
where.
nice.
So this is an abridged version of the narrative submitted by the applicant, again, doing the calculations. driving home that the overall square footage of the building is not changing. We're just taking over a little bit. And highlighting that they have, will increase bicycle parking and that they are downtown, right downtown, impacted by the downtown dispersed parking plans. So, yeah. And then our two options are, since they're in the C3 zone, we can accept it or we can do a B in lieu. B in lieu is going to require a different meeting and a public hearing to go through that. We do have the applicant today, if you have any questions for him or
I don't have any questions.
okay,
Neither do
wonderful.
I.
It's very straightforward.
Wonderful.
My mind is that this is an existing property. It's not a new development. They're not, again, like we just did with landscaping, they're working within existing site constraints. That lot is kind of weird and strange. There are spaces in the Dewey's lot, or I guess, but it's also very nearby other parking, downtown dispersed parking. You can walk right across the corner of that lot to the info center parking lot, which is massive. So, I personally don't have an issue with this. I'm excited they're expanding their space, as I've fought for a table in that establishment before. So, yeah.
Very clear.
Wonderful.
I think we've been fairly permissive with parking exceptions in the downtown corridor in the past too. So I think it's in keeping with what we tend to do. So.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, typically, and the precedent here is important, and that fee in lieu should be applied equally through applicants. We have had new uses come in, or what I consider new floor area expansions.
Yep.
Not just remodeling of floor areas or changes of uses, where that fee in lieu has been applied appropriately.
Yep.
In instances where it's a change of use without an expansion, I think the commission has now twice followed in suit with, which is where it's sounding like we're going, which is just a full exception.
Yep. Great. All right. I will move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve planning resolution number 05/2025, a planning resolution approving the parking special exception request for one parking space for the Bonjour on Main Eating Establishment, change of use on property located at 59 South Main Street, Moab, Utah, 84532.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Oh, second, motion from me, second from Jill. Any further discussion or questions for the applicant? Ben is here in chambers.
It's awesome. One piece at a time. Yes, it is.
I didn't realize you own that building, so.
Well, and I honestly think that that's such a cool area and that parking lot's already a struggle bus. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like that's a great area to have it be walking from all the
Yeah.
dispersed parking that's been developed. And I mean, that we're trying to make downtown feel more walk friendly. So,
Yeah, totally. I agree completely, Shaylee. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Rock Ben.
Excited for the redevelopment. You too.
You too.
Okay, our last action item, right? Yes. Consideration, item 5.5, consideration and possible approval of planning resolution number 06/2026. Planning resolution approving the buffering and screening special exception request for property at 1410 South Highway 191, Moab, Utah, 84532.
Okay, so today we have the Red Rock 2, which is at 1410 South Highway 191. Exception request for buffering and screening. This project, I realize we haven't seen this one yet. This is 2 apartment buildings with 60 units, 30 of which are going to be active employment households. Oh, exciting. Okay, so we are going through the DRT review cycle right now. They're currently on their 2nd round. And through that review process, we've realized we're running into some issues with buffering and screening. So we've come to you in the middle of the review process to get these ironed out so that we can continue. Okay, this is their current landscaping plan. Everything is looking dandy, except for this buffering and screening element. I've added north and east, and then we can infer the rest because that comes into play a lot. I'm going to be referring to each of the boundaries quite a lot. Oh, we'll come back to this after. So the narrative goes side by side what they're requesting. And I will do the same in chart form. Okay, so buffering is made up of distance, plantings, and screenings. Distance, there is no exception request today. We're going to be observing the distances of 10 or 8 or 15 feet as required on each side. So what we're asking for is a varied planting and screening requests on each side. So I'm going to do my best to go through this succinctly. On the northern boundary, no exception is required. We're going to do exactly what's required or above and beyond. On the eastern boundary, again, we're going to respect that distance. We are requesting that there's going to be plantings of trees and shrubs, but not in the number and spacing required by the buffering standards. And then they are requesting full exemption from the screening. On the southern boundary, they are requesting that there's no tree requirement, but they can meet the shrub requirement in the planting section. And then with the screening, they are requesting a somewhat waiver, saying that they're gonna build a concrete retaining wall that's gonna be topped with a 6-foot fence, but they'd like the 8-foot opaque screen requirement to be waived, as the grading of that concrete wall is gonna vary some, and they don't want the 8-foot to be hard and fast as that moves along the boundary. On the western boundary, they are requesting that there's no tree requirement, but they will plant shrubs. And then they are requesting a full exemption from the screening requirement, which would have been 8-foot opaque screen. Okay, we're gonna come back to all this, but I'm gonna keep going if that's okay. Okay, so the chart here is the standard and zone buffering requirements. We can see the top 2 rows are the tree requirements, canopy, and then evergreen or ornamental. And we have some standard and we have some zone boundaries mixed in. Some boundaries are zone, some are standards, and in that earlier chart, we can see which is which. Then we also have our shrub placement, spacing, and then we have our screen height also highlighted. So in the zone boundary, you'll notice everything's just a little bit more because we're abutting two properties that are residential and commercial. This property is C4. So no matter the use, we're in a commercial zone. Okay, and then over to the left here, we have what's in code for your consideration. Planning Commission should consider these items when looking to do an exemption for buffering, and then below, what are your considerations for when doing an exception for screening? So they're pretty similar. Site characteristics like topography, views, noise, placement of parking. Okay. I think that's the majority of it. And I'd be suggest questions to me if any of this was complicated or you can't understand before we go to the applicants.
Can we go back to the map?
Absolutely.
The one before.
Yeah, the one that
Oh.
has the northeast.
There.
Yeah.
So. North is going.
Up.
Up 191. And east, okay. How many residents are on that north side? Any idea?
I'm sorry, the west side? The north side is the highway?
This left would be north
Yeah.
on this map.
No, so the images it's shown is corrective to the compass. So north
Oh, it is.
directly up.
Oh, okay. So west.
West.
Yeah, what is?
It's just, I mean, it's residences. It's a
Mm-hmm.
individual,
somebody.
single family
Mhm.
property owner.
Is it residential behind it on the south? Zoned.
Zoned
Yes.
residential, yes.
Yes. So you've got residential, commercial,
Right,
highway, basically.
yeah.
Mhm.
Can you go back to the, where it has it laid out? Next. Yes.
Well, so reading their request, the big why here is because eventually he's hoping to expand this development, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the narrative goes into that the eastern boundary is Red Rock Flats, the first phase. So they're owned by the same people. They're gonna be coming to you with a shared parking request. We have access easements. There's just multiple things that are connecting these two projects that it's pretty reasonable that an internal screening and buffering may seem superfluous.
So just to like play devil's advocate, what happens if after this phase they decide to not continue on and sell that property, and then we don't, just devil's advocate, and we don't meet these requirements, we make a exception to move forward based on that they're going to continue on and make it one big development, but what if they don't?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when We've been talking to Ellen about the interconnectedness of these two properties. And when we come for the shared parking agreement, likely at one of probably our next planning commission meeting, we're gonna have some sort of written statement from her that the lot line is gonna be dissolved. So these will become one ginormous lot imminently, is what we have discussed with Ellen.
Right? That's right,
That's
Jill.
the one.
Yep. So
Okay.
yeah, Jill's pointing out which properties. So if we were back at the vicinity map, we have the red highlighted property. It's the one immediately to the right. That is Red Rock Flats, Project 1, and this is Red Rock Flats 2, Project 2. But yeah, and to the degree that Ellen chooses to or not comment on this is, yeah, there are limitations in why they can't pursue that consolidation at this moment, but it is clearly the intent, and then the owner is willing to, in the form of an agreement, conditionally advance these things that they will, upon that completion date of where it becomes an option, will consolidate. So we feel comfortable continuing and negotiating under those terms, given that we would have a formalized agreement. So that's not in place now, or is, not as a part of this discussion. So if that were something the commission is feeling they would want or need as a part of this, we could make this a conditional approval that we continue to pursue that. If we default or are unable to cure on that, it would probably be remanded back to the commission at that point. So that's another whole legal analysis that we'd have to do. But
Well, I feel like I would lean more that direction of having a conditional approval, just so that we ensure that if things happen. So if this were to change, that then they would come back and then have to do the correct screening and buffering at that point if for some reason the project doesn't happen the way that they intended to.
Can I just want to interject? Is it okay?
Yeah, just introduce yourself if you wouldn't mind, Ellen.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Ellen Weinstein. I'm the developer and the owner. Ryan is our architect. The second phase, for which we're requesting the buffering, whatever's alleviation or mitigation, really can't exist without the first phase. So the second phase, and this will probably come up in future meetings, is accessed over the first phase. It will have shared parking, shared amenities. So all of the maintenance office, the management office, the commercial, and the access to phase 2 will exist on phase 1. So even if, Shaylee, in the unusual event that we decided to sell that parcel, it would be really restricted anyway, because it just couldn't even function without having access to everything on phase 1. And that then precipitated the request for the modification for the buffering, because they really ultimately will be consolidated into one parcel, and it is contemplated as one apartment complex. It was just purchased and developed in 2 phases.
That definitely helps as far as an explanation. I still feel like, just for doing it as much by the code as we can, having that a conditional approval of, we would like that agreement in place, is just my thoughts. I'm not sure how the rest of you guys feel.
Johanna, can you, I'll say my main concern is with the western and the southern obviously, western and southern boundary, a full exception to screening on the western boundary with a residential, it's a zone boundary issue as well.
Yeah,
That's my issue.
you're correct.
That's my thought.
That is a zone buffering, and I think that they can speak to the natural topography of the site that's leading them to request that.
Yeah, Ellen, if you have just an explanation for that, I think that, and then the southern boundary, I know that's a vacant property right now, but it is residential and it is, you know, privately owned as well. I just want to make sure we're
Sorry.
deferring to those lower intensity uses and lower intensity zones wherever we can.
Yeah, well, to the west, we will have I think a 10-foot or a large concrete retaining wall. And the topography is pretty varied. And so putting up a 6-foot or 8-foot opaque screen it's going to be difficult. With the fence that we're using now on phase 1 works because the topography is flat or flatter. But I think on phase 2, it's, you know, without getting into grading on somebody else's land, I think it's just going to be difficult to meet that requirement. And it's solely a topographical issue, not our desire not to comply with the screening requirements. To the north, Ryan, can you answer that a little better about why we're
North is fine. I don't care.
I
What
think she misspoke.
South?
So I think they're talking about the west boundary, which is the natural.
The west and the south.
The natural wash is the west boundary, and it's, you know, we don't like the idea of putting a fence along the top of that wash, primarily because of the grading there, but also just as a view item for our residents along that edge. Putting like an 8-foot vinyl fence along the edge of this natural wash just doesn't it doesn't we don't like the looks of that, as well as just with the, you know, the proximity to that. I just hate putting a fence along the top of the hill there. It just, you know, runs counterintuitive to trying to keep the natural landscape as native as we can along that boundary. Along the south, there's just a big break in topography there. So, you know, we're putting in a retaining wall and it just tapers from east to west as it follows the contours of the land. We're not going over the 10-foot height that's, you know, mandated in the code, but it does get shorter than the 8-foot required in the ordinance. It doesn't seem, you know, necessary to put a fence along that boundary because the grades continue to slope up. You know, they're at a peak of, like, you know, we're 14 feet in the ground over towards the east corner, and then it gradually tapers down towards the wash as you head to the east. So I don't feel like the screening should be necessary there because it's basically screened by the land itself. That west side, you know, that one's just more the topography. There's like a change in grade of, you know, 6 to 8 feet as it drops down into the natural wash. And we were kind of feeling like that satisfied the screening requirement in itself and just the grades. And didn't like the idea of plopping a vinyl fence on top of that natural grade change, essentially. And the north side is the street, and we're providing, you know, the street trees as is required in the ordinance.
Exhibit 4, the second page of Exhibit 4 in your packets has it's not too angled, so you can't see the wash in all of its glory, but it's like labeled, and you can kind of see from the bird's eye view a little bit more of what he's talking about than I have in my presentation.
Yeah, it may be unnecessary, but we do have through our Google Earth and GIS, I can rotate our axion so I can actually see in 3D view from Google Earth. So I can show that if it's helpful. May not be. Yeah. I think it's up to where the commission wants to go with this. I do think it's important that the commission fully understand what it is that's being proposed though, because it is complicated. So make sure we're happy to help you walk through whatever you need to be walked through. But if you understand, what do you mean slope? What do you mean wash? Let's ensure before you make any moves.
Yes, please.
Let's make sure. Let's see here. Sorry, everyone. I am not on the Zoom, so it's going to take me just a moment to get logged in to get access and shared. Joe. Should clear this there. Okay, so this is more or less looking generally south. So we can see the highway at the bottom end of the screen. From this, obviously, it's quite a bit dated. Is the aerial photos when we get into the 3D imagery, but more or less, if you can see my cursor here, this is the Red Rock 1 project property. This would be the Red Rock 2 project property. So in this, there is a natural arroyo wash drainage that comes from the uphill property and then more or less straddles pretty close to exactly on that boundary line. It does move west and east a touch, but then eventually does curve and curl out to the highway there through this property. So, and the more I start to tilt this, the wonkier the pixelation gets. So this is about as horizontal as we get without it getting too wonky, but we'll give it a try. Maybe we'll get rid of the parcels. That might help prevent it getting too washed out here. Whoa. Yeah,
That's nice.
That didn't take long. That totally didn't help.
What do you mean high detail on Moab, Google Earth in Moab, Utah is not a high priority for Google?
How we got to the ocean somehow. But anyway,
I mean, Corey, that image gave you a sense of how there's a pretty drastic grade change where this lot meets Highway 191. And I just cringe at the idea that we're gonna put a white vinyl fence or any kind of fence that's coming out to intersect the right of way, that's up in the air, about 15 to 18 feet, right on the edge of that wash, as we're calling it, and just kind of ending it there.
So thank you, Ryan. Yeah, the only addition I might make to that is that it is unique in an instance that along the two boundaries that are being proposed, one of these boundaries, the west, this site will, for all intents and purposes, be elevated above that to the west. And the rear, the further south property is obviously going to be up above. But I think what we're saying is on the property to the south, they're proposing what is basically a standard screening fence, 6 foot. Is that correct? Or at least it's variable through that rear property. Or am I off? That's incorrect.
Yeah, for the west.
The west is total exception.
Our total exception, and in the south, we have a
partial
retaining wall and then 6 foot fence.
That's on top. So when we're thinking about what it is that these screening standards were adopted to provide, is mitigation of variable impact of intensities. So interesting enough that the zone boundary was really meant to be commercial zones with commercial uses against residential uses. So the fact that this is residential against other residential, that there just happens to be a commercial zone, is a bit of an inaccuracy and maybe on original intent. That being said, though, this is a large scale residential project in a zone boundary that could, understandably have mixed elements in it. It's not proposed at this time. So I guess what I'm getting at is from residential to residential is what we might see anywhere else. A 6-foot screening and standard buffering standards would be typical. So along that south boundary, it doesn't seem to be, except for the trees and vegetative buffering elements, that far off. The west boundary, however, though, is plateaued above. And so how that's to be perceived by the planning commission, while it, Ryan did, I think, articulate it, we'd hate to have these folks having to park and basically there's a vinyl fence where there could be basically a natural decline down into this wash and it just kind of flows naturally. But I think the commission, your job is to consider, are the impacts on the neighbors being mitigated appropriately through these exceptions? And that might be the natural plateau or elevation does that. I'm not sure what your response is to that, but I'm describing this accurately, right? The grading will be well above the neighbor. So we have occupancies happening on the site that won't be screened that are up above eye level, whether that's screened sufficiently by the rise or not. Those are the considerations I'd like you to focus on.
Can you, Johanna, address the tree exception for the western boundary? I know I understand the opaque screening, but talk to me about the trees.
Yeah, so in their narrative and in my conversations with Ryan, he is saying that the slope of the wash is such that trees wouldn't be as suitable as native shrubs.
It's this. I'm so sorry, Johanna. I was looking at a Google Maps image. Can you say
Absolutely.
that again? I apologize.
Yes. The slopes that are caused by the wash make it less suitable for trees.
Okay.
And they think that native shrubs would thrive more.
Okay.
If you'd like, I've gotten the site back in 3D.
Sure.
We had to fly in from the
Vacation.
Johanna is still sharing
From me.
the Pacific somewhere. Okay. Here we go. So I've taken the parcel boundaries off because they get really broad, like in the bottom left there. They kind of disrupt the imagery. And again, this is not perfect. It's again just the tools we have, but it gives an idea of representation of the plateau that we're on that eventually equals out by near the end of the property. And then as this is graded, you'll probably have again this rise to the rear. They'll have a retaining section and then the 6-foot wall on top. But through here, it's just basically proposed to remain as at grade, which is an interesting situation. This property, it's hard to say it's currently in the county. It's not within the city. It does have technically illegal access through the middle of this wash, whether they can realize it.
It's on that flag lot.
And maybe I'll try to put the parcel viewer back on. We'll see what happens here. Oh, it's not terrible. But there is a access way further to the west. So in theory, they could be accessing off this right of way as opposed to this legal access. Who's to say what the standards are?
That's the wash. Here's like the
so along
Okay, so this big one on the left is phase 1.
This is phase 2. This is the property that we're discussing. The phase 1 is even further to the southeast, way off in the corner. So I'll put the zone.
But they're doing phase 2 first.
This is project 1. And the reason I'm going to distinguish this way is that project 1 has 2 phases in it. So when we come back for
no
phase
wonder I was
2
getting confused.
of project 1. So project 1, project 2 is the site in question.
And the middle boundary here, that's the western boundary.
Yes.
This is the western boundary that would have the requested.
And like, what is it zoned, that back property behind the residential property?
That's residential as well.
I believe they're both within the county RR rural residential. There may be some aspects up here in the front that have a highway commercial offset, but generally speaking.
I guess I would wonder like how those residential owners are gonna feel about
Yeah, have I
us
been-
granting an exception to not having, I mean, they're about to have an apartment building. Are they gonna want, a fence or
Yeah,
some
I
of
mean,
this?
Johanna, if we were just discussing this today about a different project, I don't know if it's worth bringing up, is the definition of screening, and then furthermore, how screening is measured.
Mhm.
In the discussions we had today, it seems relevant in that some of the intent behind the screen is indicative of how we measure them. Long story short, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but is screening will be measured from when the opposing sides of the screen are different in elevation. The screen shall be measured from the uphill side. I wish I could draw this with my whiteboard, but basically on this plateau that we have, the idea that through screening is that the downhill property would receive the same benefits of screens that are placed atop the hill. Just because you're higher doesn't make the screening eligible for less height. I don't know what that means in this context, but that's how it's been expressed throughout the rest of our code.
Do you know the elevation difference between the two properties?
Or from the
That would be a good
down.
question, yeah, for Ellen and Ryan, based off the likely design of to mitigate that wash. What
Ryan, what is it, about 10 feet?
It just tapers, it's higher on the north west corner, and it tapers down as you head to the south, but it's anywhere from like 10 to 12 feet, down to like 5 or 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys discussed this with those property owners at all?
Yes.
Can you tell us what those conversations have been like?
No, we haven't had discussions with them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we've had discussions with the neighbors to the north. I keep getting confused. I think it's the west, where the wash is.
Yeah, that's the west.
And they're fine with it. In fact, I think we're getting
we submitted an email, saying that they're okay with, because we do need to get onto their property to manipulate the grades a little bit. And they said they were okay with that, but we need to get it in a formal, like temporary construction easement, basically, which was in one of our last comments on the DRT, on the site plan review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so as far as I know, that's the only parcel that has an occupant on it. The parcel to the north, south, I believe that land's undeveloped.
Yes.
Yeah, and even like the southwest corner seems undeveloped too.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine there. Good to hear that the western adjacent property owners are okay with it. I think that particular barrier is my main concern. Like you said, because it's occupied. And to be clear, so it's weird. You've got like the little flag lot. This would be the residential, like currently occupied structure you've talked to, even if that it looks, at least looking at like the parcel viewer, it looks like that little spit is actually owned by the back lot. So the southernmost lot.
Correct. We're talking to the party that's on the other side of that flag.
Cool.
Yeah.
Could you, as you guys move forward with this, have in writing from the residents saying that it's okay?
Yeah, that's
so down the road, 20 years, somebody comes and complains about it, it's in writing.
I can't, I mean, we could have a conversation. I'm not sure that they're going to agree to it in perpetuity, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like you were getting that in writing that they are fine with it now, correct? Did I hear that right from Ryan?
Yeah, we have,
the neighbor, right, the neighbor on the other side of the wash
Yep.
is fine with it. And they're fine with giving us a temporary construction easement, like Ryan said, because we need to get onto their land to do some of the grading on our land. And they agreed to it.
Great.
We just need to memorialize it in a formal written document.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. For those at home, Google Street View actually has a great view of this. Check it out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. With that, so what we're seeing there, what Kaya showed us, not what we're all seeing, is basically that rise that in his existence, this project will be pushing through fill that rise closer to the highway, but there will still be essentially that same wash coming down to the highway for drainage. And at that, at least with the LiDAR that I have, that the measurements are right, that basically at its steepest, it appears to be a 10-foot rise, and it narrows as it approaches the rear of the property to the point of it actually impacts, they'll be grading into the hill to this, significant degree as well. I would say my only remaining concern is at least looking at the landscaping plan or the site plan. That's the parking area that's on the western boundary, right? One of the nice things about screening with parking areas is you're not getting headlights shining over your property. It's not like it's the building that's sort of looming, which is a reason for screening. It really is, making sure headlights aren't like shining on whatever that grade is. I don't know how you would determine that. Well, as a plateaued area,
Mhm.
that would be the case. Again, these are impacts, whether we perceive them or not.
Yeah.
Which is part of your duty for the possible future annexation of these properties, developing under the city code or just under the county. That at least we're honoring those properties in the county to be mitigated from higher impacts. I haven't weighed in on this really, but my understanding is that it would be a shame to put a vinyl fence in there. I'd like to hear more as to why that is an unnecessary mitigative element or how it's otherwise being mitigated. I don't believe I've heard that, and I'm a major fan of this project moving forward, but I have been on the other side of these appeal processes specifically about fences and bufferings. I'd really prefer not to go back to those. We are going through the appropriate review procedure, so if it's accepted, it will be accepted. Doesn't mean it can't be appealed. But this is not something that I take lightly, is that, especially in our community, it's I don't necessarily believe tall fences make good neighbors, but in some instances, some mitigations make good neighbors. So I just want the commission to be really aware of what it is they're making exceptions for.
Yeah.
I agree with that completely, Corey. I think I'm a huge fan of this project. I just want to make sure that we're trying to look at it from all sides so that we're not having to come back going, oh, did we just approve something that made someone else mad?
To that effect, I mean, Ellen and Ryan are on the call, and they've given appropriate narrative to the packet. They've provided some good testimony tonight. It's up to you to maybe either find that compelling enough or ask the questions that you need to find it more compelling. I don't know what the disadvantage from the screening specifically would do to their project. I know it could be more technical, but where that screening can be placed is anywhere within that buffer. So it doesn't have to be on the exact property line. That screen can be placed anywhere within that buffering area and still qualify as the required screening. So that is to say a fence right adjacent to the parking, allowing them still sufficient ability to improve that stabilization of the wash. That being said, to their point, they believe it would be a better product for them without the fence. It'd be more attractive, and I'm maybe not disputing that at all. It's just I don't think that is the holistic concern of why that regulations in place. It is specifically to offset mitigations to the neighbor, not an aesthetic element necessarily required for the project itself.
Does it have to be a fence?
It's up to you how you'd like to modify these exceptions. There are screening measures in our code that there are green screens and screenings that can qualify. We've adopted a code where screening is standardized now, but you can make exceptions beyond that, which can be green screening. Trees, shrubs at a density interval do qualify as green screening and could qualify in this. And so maybe you are getting somewhere slightly different, although it's sounding like vegetation in this area is going to be tough anyway. But yeah, to your point, you can get creative, and the applicants can get more creative. I'd hate to become creative on their behalf. With this group, they need to, propose what they think is going to make the most sense.
I mean, honestly, I think my concern really does come down to that is a significant row of parking spaces. People will be in and out. I think even if the grade is different with the adjacent property, I don't see any world in which there's enough opaqueness between the two that the adjacent property owner isn't going to have headlights coming in onto their property without some sort of more formal screening between the use being the parking spaces there and the adjacent property. Again, like Corey said, it doesn't necessarily need to be on the property line. You still have room to sort of play with the grade and the wash, but just with that long row of however many parking spaces that is, which is a great use of the property. I think it's good that you have the buildings where you have the buildings. I think that makes good sense, but I have seen enough of these kind of projects where adjacent landowners in a residential area next to a new higher density development have put up their own fences at their own cost because there were unanticipated impacts from the parking area, not from the buildings themselves. And I do think it's incumbent on us to consider that when we're talking about screening, because I do think that's a big, by my mind, a reason why we have that requirement. It's not just like intensity of use. It's light trespass. It's, all those things.
Mitigation of nuisance impacts, which is the way our code should be written. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be arbitrary to aesthetics. It should be anything we're requiring has a direct and meaningful.
And yes, big fence, big ugly fence, that's bad. But if I'm the adjacent property owner, I would much rather have a big ugly fence than headlights coming in my windows.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
I did look it up, and then to confirm the zoning, there is that offset of highway commercial, but it basically extends up to the point of that the flagpole of that flag lot, and then it does change more or less to rural residential right at that junction of the lot. So that lot without some other zone adjustments through the county would be considered rural residential for its major developable area.
I think I'm fine with the other exceptions, but I think the screening exception on that western boundary is a hard hurdle for me to get over.
Agreed.
And I do think there's other ways to do it. Obviously, it's your property, it's your development, it's what works for you. I don't think it needs to be a big, ugly vinyl fence, but I do think some sort of opacity in the interest of the adjacent property owners makes sense to me.
Even 4 foot would be better than nothing.
That's the thing, like
just enough to get the lights from a car.
Yeah, I don't know that it would need to be. I think it's just the blanket, except it's the full exemption that is the issue.
Anybody else? We jumped over. Oh, yeah, I heard you.
Oops, what are we hearing?
I don't know.
What was that?
Shaylee's phone.
Oh.
Sorry. I think a shorter fence, I think that's a good point. Could be something that would be workable because the grade is higher.
That's something of
Think,
note. So to that point, greater than 7 feet has to be a required engineered fence.
Yeah.
So it requires building permit and engineering. 7 foot or below, or 6 foot in this instance, is a standard fence. And yeah, in instances of opposing, maybe it's worth pulling up that language, but opposing grades of where the fence is a determining center line between those opposing grades to a degree. Obviously, it's not always strictly on a retaining wall, but it has some flow to it. No matter if the neighboring property is above, and there's a 10-foot retaining wall, and then we're talking about a fence above that. That's usually a safety mechanism. It is also screening according to our code. It doesn't distinguish about that, but it's mostly a safety mechanism at that point, because the impacts of those neighbors would be offset by that big retaining wall. So the 6-foot fence on top of that retaining wall, which is kind of more or less what's being proposed on that south boundary, is quasi safety, quasi privacy, but really that neighbor's observation point of impact is above most of that nuisance activity. Are they going to see the tops of 3-story buildings? No. Are they going to see the side of 3-story buildings? Sure. But they're not going to be down at the activity level. The concern here is that if you're having a neighboring property that is below without a fence, they will either, depending on how low they are, have full observation of all those nuisances: headlights, dust, glare, noise, anything else that could be traveling across that screening and buffering are meant to mitigate. But additionally speaking, from an engineering perspective, depending on what that slope and grade is, they may be required to have a safety fence, for lack of a better term. There's a different term for it from them, which is a lot more variable. It's not opaque. It's just trying to keep people from falling. They basically, beyond those parking stalls, falling down into the wash. So they may be required to have a fence anyway, just from a safety strip perspective. Yeah. Depending on what that grade ends up being. If it's a 10-foot retaining or it's more acute, certainly. If it's at a grade that's acceptable, I don't know if it's 2 to 1, then the engineers say, no, it's not a fall hazard. So it would be purely mitigative for screening at that point. But as we know, we've just explored, it's likely they're going to have the whole gambit of basically property that's well above, property along this western boundary, property that is well above the neighbor, property that is at grade with the neighbor, and then property that is below the neighbor at a certain point because of the span of the entirety of that site. So that's a tough boundary, to your point, say, just blanket exception across. And I appreciate the conversation. I'm not trying to steer the ship, but I do know what the objections will be come development time. So I'm trying to head those off beforehand, whatever we're comfortable with. Yeah. We'll have good findings to respond to.
It's a safety issue going into the wash. Couldn't there be, it doesn't have to be a fence, but maybe putting boulders around, like just something that could flow with the landscape, the natural landscape, that tells people, hey, wait a minute, this is where the property line ends and I shouldn't be going in that direction.
Well, it sounds like that's the safety fence that could still be a requirement that you're mentioning.
It could be, yeah. Typically, there are standards. The engineers will set those standards. They can be less. I mean, they have a minimum height that qualify. Typically, they're not features. They'll be a fence, of course, not a landscape feature. But that's where you guys are coming in from a screening perspective. Has a lot broader definition of what you can employ. But to that measure, and like the modifications we were talking about with the last applicant, we can be as creative as we want all day. None of that might line up for what their either budgets are going to allow, nor the functionality of it. But again, if the commission's feeling compelled, I think, a big ugly fence wouldn't be optimal. I think you would probably want to have a little bit more in your findings of fact to support that. And I'm not saying that there aren't findings of fact that they can provide for you 2 nights to grant the full exception. We just need it more than, hey, that'd be less than optimal from this perspective. You're going to want something a little deeper.
So we are on round 2 of DRT. There's gonna be another round. Our rounds of review take 2 weeks. They are gonna need to come for a shared parking exception. So if we wanted to tonight accept the 3 boundaries that it seems like we're coming to a consensus on, they're gonna be coming back to planning commission. So if you guys wanted, I wouldn't feel pressure to make a decision tonight as they're gonna come back. So we could request more information of them, of the western boundary, and then approve the eastern and southern exceptions tonight, if you wanted.
I like that. Or, yeah,
Mhm.
tabling all around, depending on what the applicants want, or just a modification to the request. Because again, their request is solid. They've requested this, so you have the option to approve, deny, or continue, or a modification as a friendly amendment that they can accept or reject. So either way, you can table it. That is your disposition. Or if they're like, well, we're good with the 3 and you're good with 3, that's the modification that can be made.
I mean, it sounds like to me that doing something along the lines of doing a shorter fence on the west side where we are adjoining the residential lot and then possibly transitioning to some shrubs or greenery to block headlights, as you go further to the north, is something that the council would be amenable to, if I'm understanding.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of see that laid out and the justification for it. But yeah, I think the concerns, being noise, dust, light, really with the parking area. It seems like there's very likely going to be some sort of safety mechanism so people don't drive off of your property into the wash if they come home intoxicated or something like.
I mean, this isn't a straight drop. It's like a 2-to-1 slope. It's being handled with grading with no further, nothing necessary to try and stabilize, slope stabilization or anything along those lines. So, but it's still a decent drop.
Yeah, I think that hopefully makes sense. It really is that to me, I think some sort of opaque screening to prevent headlight sort of overflow into adjacent properties is my main concern. So yes, if we wanted to modify our recommendation, if it sounds like folks mostly agree that the northern, eastern, and southern boundary requests make sense. But with the modification that the western boundary, I think we can just deny it and then they can always come back. I don't know that it needs to be tabled or anything like that because we're not really tabling that. We're granting it in part. We're granting their exception request in part.
That could be a modification to the.
Yeah, I just don't know what's cleaner.
Yeah. Sorry, and we're moving beyond this, but I found it that it is going to belabor the point further. But this is the definition of screening. I'll read it aloud. Screening means a vertical barrier including opaque fences, walls, site obscuring fences, and landscape screening situated between adjacent uses or properties. Other features constructed or planted to reduce impact on adjacent land uses and land areas. Where the difference in elevation on the opposite sides of the screen, the height shall be measured from the highest elevation. There's a couple pieces in there that I think are relevant. We don't need to discuss them now, just we touched on them a little bit already. But I think that's good to keep in the back of mind. Now, back to procedures wise. I think that's kind of up to the commission, how you'd like to move forward, how you'd like to skin the cat. go ahead if you have a recommendation.
I was just gonna say, the recommended motion as put out cleanly has all the boundaries separated.
Yep.
So we are primed and ready for just a la carte, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And that we've done this before as well, that if you were to make a motion for approval with that modification, in fact, the applicant can accept or reject that. You've approved it in this way, they can, whether they take it or leave it, so to speak. So that would be a clean way for them to continue to move forward and then return for the west boundary through an additional exception without having to table any of the elements. So that is a way to do that.
I like that.
I like that. Okay. I will do that then because I made it complicated.
We all help.
I move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve Planning Resolution 6/2026, a planning resolution approving the following buffering and screening special exception request for property at 1410 South Highway 191, Moab, Utah 84532. The northern boundary, eastern boundary, and southern boundary exceptions as noted in the agenda are accepted with the modification to exclude the western boundary exception from our resolution this evening. Hopefully that works.
Another thing, but I can make it after the
I second it.
All right. Second from Shaylee and some discussion. Corey, did you have a?
I did. If
No.
you wanted to, and we got a little bit away from this regarding the east boundary, having that have some language conditional that they advance consolidation in the future at some point, or if you're comfortable just as is.
Yeah, I am
That's fine.
comfortable as is. It's my motion, but Shaylee, you brought that up. Do you want to amend my motion to add that, or are you fine with as is?
I mean, I think with the placement of the property, I think it's a great point, and I would like it in there. Can we amend it? Let's get that in there. With the agreement.
I heard I would like it in.
I'm sorry. I have very, very bad reception.
No, you're good. All right. Procedurally, there's a motion on the table. There's been a second. Would we call for a vote first and then amend it?
We just went through this with the council and I corrected it in a way I was like, I don't remember that being rules and order. That I believe one of the attorneys was saying that that has been seconded. So the friendly amendment could not be accessed at this point.
Yes.
We're into deliberation. So you'd have to make an action.
Yeah.
And then come back with the other.
So it sounds like if you would like Shaylee's amendment added to the language to vote nay on the motion and then bring the amended motion.
Sorry to do that to you.
Fine. No, but just, yeah.
I believe I thought that friendly amendments could happen after deliberation, but I think recently I was corrected.
No,
and
yeah.
It's touchy with that. So I'd rather
We don't do it often. So it's
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, this is definitely correct to do it.
Yeah.
Way to deny and then come back with a second.
Okay, so we have the motion on the table that has the exceptions as indicated in the packet with the exception modification to exclude the western boundary exception that was requested. No other modifications. That is my motion. I'm sticking with it. If you want that motion, I would say vote yay. If you would like to consider another motion, including that one with a possible amendment from Shaylee to add the condition of the consolidation of the lots for the eastern boundary exception, then it would be proper to vote nay on this motion, and then someone can make that new amended motion. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of the motion currently on the table, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes.
Wonderful.
Shaylee, apologies.
Okay. Can't win them all. Can't win them all.
No, I understand. I understand your concern. Okay, so the motion passed 3. I should say, all those opposed. It hasn't passed.
Nay.
Nay. All right, nay from Shaylee. Okay, so that passed 3-1 with Shaylee as a nay. That is what we have approved, and now it's up to the applicants if that's sufficient for them,
Yep.
or if they'd like to come back
That's correct.
with something else. Okay.
Thank
right.
you, applicants.
Yes,
Ellen and Ryan.
Thank you
That-
so much. Like we
Yeah.
said, I think we're all really excited for this project. It's just trying to kind of balance that, ins and outs with the adjacent property owners, but we're really excited for the product. So
Understood. Thank you.
Is
thank-
Johanna going to be in the office tomorrow?
Yeah.
Just like.
All right.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Shaylee, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. We're done with our action items. Yay. On to our discussion item for the evening.
Make that tight 30, maybe a tight
Yeah.
15,
Yeah.
maybe even less.
Some I did my homework. We have some feedback. All right. So this is item 6.1, our land use code update discussion. Take it away.
Okay.
And I do also have some thoughts from Carolyn, who took
Oh.
the wonderful time to email me.
Look at
Aw.
this group.
Such a nice job putting this together.
I thought I heard you clicking and I was. Oh,
Are
are
you-
you bringing something?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Sort out my windows.
I'm like the snack monster over here.
Okay. So I hope that my email explanation of what this was understandable. I'm going to go through it again for all our fans. Okay. So columns B through G and onwards. These are all uses that exist currently in our code, or our planning commissioners drove around and visited with constituents and either saw in our community or imagined up for our community. And then column A is based off of other communities' codes, what I thought we could be a starting off point of the biggest buckets imaginable, that we can fit all the uses in our brains, from our eyes, and from our code, can all be stuffed into these big buckets. What I've asked of the planning commissioners and what I hope we can get started with tonight is go through each row and play which one of these things is not like the other game until we are confident that the big bucket of row A can confidently hold all the uses to its right with the same use parameters. And if we see any that are in the same row that we think could use different use parameters, I'd like more buffering on this use. I'd like more parking on this use. Then we'll pull it out and put it down here. I've already got one, historic dwelling. Did not know where to put that one or if we needed it. So we'll bring it down here to be kind of unsorted, and we'll see if we can make another big bucket or if it just needs to be standalone.
With this exercise, zoning district from big buckets could be another division element. So maybe the parameters, use parameters, impacts of mitigation of the use may be the same, but maybe just using the first one, group dwellings, we might say these, and this is hard now because our zones are not being modified at the same time. We're doing things a bit backwards. But this will maybe help us in the future designate zones maybe a little bit more specifically is, do group living dwellings could they belong in any given zone that we want all of those things? Or would a zone be another reason to put them into a different bucket, that you have more dense or less dense residential zoning, and you say more dense residential zoning can absorb group living dwellings and low density residential couldn't? Does that make sense? It's a bit of an additional comma to this exercise, and I don't want to disrupt it too much. Johanna, what's your thoughts on that? Not just being a parameter, but also just zones being a
Yeah, I mean,
vision element.
I think in our conversations in general, we always like to be yes, if. So I am of the mind that if we can get as many uses and in as many zones as possible, and just adding ifs rather than taking away uses from zones is preferable to me, but it's up to the group.
Does that make sense for everyone when we're saying like yes if? I know Steve's a little bit newer to our jargon. Does that make sense for everyone to track? Okay, I think that's an excellent way to approach this. And then that's usually, if I can imagine there's a division, it is just simply that residential uses that are clearly low versus high. That might be a distinguishing different bucket of the same type of use. So it might be rare, but keep that in the back of your mind maybe. But I think let's focus on the immediate exercise, which is which ones don't look like the other ones.
And before we begin, this is inherently going to come up, but we're not going to make any decisions, and I'm not going to take any notes on it tonight about what the use parameters might be. That we got to have a separate, it's going to be too much if we try to talk about, I think this one should have this parking tonight.
God. Oh, God.
So let's try to avoid that.
I think we all agree.
Yeah.
Yes. And we are stopping at 8:45. Okay,
Yeah.
start the clock. So sorry, Kaya, you said that you had brought some notes. Did you
Yes.
have some that you wanted to
No.
start out with?
Literally just so I have what Carolyn sent. There are a couple, I'll like do an abbreviated version of hers. But I think tour operator, which is, let me find that again. Where is that? It's somewhere in commercial. Tour operator under, okay, actually bigger, personal services, and this was a comment of Carolyn's as well, is a very strange and vague bucket. I think her comment was very vague and seems to have very expansive and different definitions. I would agree with that, because as of right now, the personal services bucket includes funeral establishment, outfitters and guides, service establishments, spas, and tour operators. That doesn't make sense to me, just as an overall. I think some of those things can be put in other categories too. But my comment on tour operators is that I think it should be broken out like we have done otherwise into OHV and non-OHV.
Okay.
We do have where OHV rentals as its own thing. I think OHV tour operators should be in the same bucket as OHV rentals, especially because those often go hand in hand. I actually can't name any OHV rental places that don't have some sort of offering of a tour component too. So I think that kind of inherently captures it. But in the future, because it's the same impact, it's the same issues, it's the presence of the fleet and the staging area, I think. So to me, I think tour operator is far too broad and should probably be encapsulated in like, you've got like the Jeep tours are in the car rental category. The OHV tours are in the OHV rental category. The boat tour operators are in the guides and outfitters like Texas or Moab Jet or what have you. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
And to that effect, I think in this instance for our community for down the line the greatest specificity, I
Mhm.
imagine that we're having outfitters
Yeah.
as a big bucket, and then
Yep.
we further fill that with these refined buckets.
Yep.
But then even then, like we're saying, we could have very likely multiple medium buckets that are still distinguished. So that we are placing OHV outfitters and tours in certain districts that are different than
Yeah.
rafting or climbing or
Yeah.
any other, but cycling, anything, those would be how we're breaking it out per zone. But I think because again, this exercise zoning, it's not the preliminary exercise we're going through tonight, is what is the impact to do these things, what's happening for the people there, which is I'm glad you picked up on professional services as kind of the first one. That how do we do the best way that we can probably reference this back, sorry to usurp the time here, is like what Barry was talking about with occupancies. He doesn't care when somebody's at a desk and they're sliding a piece of paper to a client. He doesn't care what's on the piece of paper. So whether that's an attorney or that's a drafter or whatever, why would we distinguish that different? It's virtually the same action.
Yeah.
That's where personal services is of all of these probably one of the trickiest. Of you're providing basically a custom service. So I think extracting outfitters is a really good. I'm there with you also, but that is interesting. Funeral establishment, custom personnel services, or personal services rather. That is good to tease out of like what is
the service establishment?
What is it? Well, that's a great definition that we could.
Where I go, park my car, stay for a while. Nothing much happens on the outside, and then I leave.
Okay.
Is kind of the junk drawer that I made personal services is.
Yeah.
Where does that happen?
That's a good way to put it. And that's what I believe service establishes is not currently defined in our code, but it is an often big catch. That is that a gas station? Is that a small, something that's beyond a retail? Because when we talk about vending permits, you're often vending, right? And so we see vending licenses also were conveying services, and that seems contradictory. So this is where services, goods and or services, goods typically customary of retail. That would be you're exchanging something for something.
Yeah.
And this, you're exchanging something for a service. So that could be a automotive establishment. It could be, we could break that out again. Very big bucket.
There's a big difference between like going and getting a manicure and going and having like your car detailed.
Right. In our current code, it's basically defaulted to that we have this big use, and then we've also added a bunch of supplementary uses that then why is that different than service?
Totally.
That's I think Johanna's big pursuit, at least in that line item. Maybe we move past it because that is an awfully complicated one, knowing we need to tease that out.
Yeah, I think so. Would just like, and what, something that seems to be missing to me, or maybe some of those personal services probably fit fine under offices, and some of them probably fit better under, I feel like, I guess my thought is all of those individual things in that bucket could probably be distributed to other buckets.
Wonderful. I like that. Getting rid of a big bucket?
Yeah.
I'm trying to consolidate.
Like custom personal services, offices.
It's kind of how we're operating now. So that's not a bad observation.
Yeah. Spa and personal care services, offices. I'm thinking of, so like we have offices that we've rented for 30 years above Red Rock Bakery, my employer. Right. And we are up there as just like offices, with there's a massage therapist next door to me. There's a naturopathic doctor. There's psychiatrists. There was a tattoo and piercing place for a hot minute. There's also just like offices that are never occupied that somebody has had and been renting for like 20 years, you know? So I think like that is that catch to me.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, like where would that fit? To me, that is it's an office. And it's an office, whether it's a massage therapist or someone doing like hypnotism, like there's been all sorts of things, but it still just remains like an office. So my next comment was that the car wash can and should be with service stations. I think that makes sense to me.
Okay.
I think those two things, one, are often one and the same. And then as far as like zoning and all that.
Service station, like to get like oil changes and stuff.
Yeah, like a gas station.
What if
Service is a,
So we do
What
have
if we
service
have-
station also in our
what if
code,
we have
but
someone
it's
that
on-
wants to do like a?
Sorry, what was
But
that?
what if someone wants to come in and do like one of those?
Like
What if
pumping
someone wants to do like a wiggy wash?
or a duck duck go kind of car wash.
Yeah, like I feel like a gas, like a Maverick and like a wiggy wash, same thing. Same area that they'd be appropriate, same intensity of uses.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like
associating it with an automobile type thing.
yeah, well, with the gas, what I would call a
service.
service
So you're
station.
you're flipping service station as the big bucket and gas station or
Yeah. I would say service station is the
Service.
big
Like you're speaking
bucket.
of
That could be a
regulars.
gas station. That could be like
Yeah.
maybe there's a large
Mhm.
automotive detailing place that pops up.
Your gas station over here and your service station.
A car wash,
Word wise.
Mhm.
a truck stop. I mean, that's all.
It's a service.
Yeah,
Would that
vehicle repair.
include Napa and
No, I would say that's retail still.
What we have currently, vehicle repair is separate.
Yeah, and I would
Just
say
get-
that's
talking
different
retail,
too.
like functionally they could be, except imagine if we have, and this is what will be hard, again, I'm stuck in zoning mode. We want to allow retail in the C5 commercial. Is that also appropriate for a Napa? Well, if we're saying retail is permitted and we define Napa as retail,
That's a good
then
point.
all of a sudden, maybe the Napa has a limited scope where it is just a walk-in retail. It really is just a goods experience. But the minute they start offering services, now we're talking something slightly different, which we can have those distinctions and flexibilities of yes, if like your customary service station, they've removed their scope, or a gas station removes the gas element. Now they're just a convenience store. And that convenience store might be applicable in other zones that maybe the gas station wouldn't be. Yeah, I'm very much stuck on zone.
I think what would make sense in the Napa, that's a good point, and that's not something I thought of. I think vehicle repair, that bucket could be vehicle repair and retail. And I think that would capture the Napas and the O'Reillys and the places where someone might be doing just like a little light bit of vehicle repair in the parking lot on a regular basis at Napa or O'Reilly or wherever. And I think
Do you
because
think that could be different than service station?
yes,
They are
I do.
distinctively
I really
different for
I
you?
think there's a
Okay.
big difference between an O'Reilly and a Maverick. Or like a large
To me,
car
like a
car
service
wash.
station is something you go, you might be there for a short amount of time
Yeah.
and then you leave. Where like the other one, like a repair, your car's got to stay there for a while.
Yeah.
This isn't like a short term type of thing in my brain
Mhm.
anyway. So a service is like, okay, you're gonna go get that service done within the hour and leave. Where repair is long term.
so everything we just talked about had to do with like auto.
Mhm.
What is there another service that would have those same components, but not be tied to automotive.
I mean, potentially, but I don't know. To me, the term service station is a gas station. I grew up. That was what we used to refer to a gas station. Like you'd go to the Sinclair service station. So I feel like that makes sense for that bucket. And then it's, the description of what it is will tell you what it is.
Yes,
But
that's
a
a
lot of what we're talking about is the definition.
yeah, that's a wonderful point. So next, I don't know how we're gonna order this, but just as I said, that we're gonna come back and we're gonna do use parameters. We're also gonna come back and we're gonna do definitions for every single one of these. And when we come at and do those, we're probably gonna have some last minute shuffling around. So what would really be helpful for next round or next meeting is probably that everybody makes a copy of this and play a fun sorting game. And everybody sorts to their likings, and I'll compare everybody's, highlight what we all had in common. And then we can go through the ones that we didn't. And then it'll just be a little bit more organized and good on my brain. And then we can come back and do definitions that we think encapsulate all of the row B through G's of it all, and then make our last minute changes, then move on to use parameters, and then make our last minute changes. If that sounds good to everybody.
Makes sense.
What's a parklet?
Sorry, what?
What's a parklet?
A parklet would be like 98 Center, what they have outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is.
A little, there's seating in the parking area, basically.
Okay. So I'm like, I don't know.
And then just in the interest of time, my final comment was that I feel like an apothecary or an herbal store should be in neighborhood retail, not with like medical.
Okay. I'm so excited for neighborhood retail, guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
Me too.
I think I might add, so commissary kitchen is tagged onto offices. I might also think about commissary kitchen being, it's not eating establishment. It is different than that, but I would say offices ought to be from the kind of Barry's world. Those are going to be inherently different.
Yeah.
Is it
Realms
paid
of
for?
impact. What's that?
Is that paid for? Because some of the National Parks building down on Resource, there's kitchens in there.
Commissary
But
kitchen.
it's not a commissary. In my head, it's not a commissary because you're not buying something, you're making your own food there.
It might be even a little bit further than that. I think commissary for us would be basically you pay tenancy or lease to access a commercial grade kitchen for your either personal business or something like that. So it is basically a commercial grade kitchen that patrons have access to.
This is like a
versus there's a kitchenette as a part of the business. We won't look at that. In fact, we're just looking at that. Like there's a little kitchen as a part of a clubhouse for a residential development. We're like, that's just your little kitchen. That's not a dwelling. It's not any of those.
I missed where you wanted to put this.
I think I'm saying it's one of the question marks. I think we gotta pull it out, maybe find a different bucket, or it creates its own bucket.
I think it's a neighborhood commercial or neighborhood retail, potentially.
Good, except the exchange isn't retail per se.
Yeah, but I think I'm thinking I'm
It
already
should
thinking about
live
like
amongst them.
intensity
It should live
levels,
amongst
and I think particularly I think the apothecary is sort of the bridge there between the two, because if you think about if you are like distilling medicinal herbs in your little
cauldron,
in your little like health department approved kitchen for that business, that is to me is very similar to being a baker that provides scones to coffee joints in town who needs to prepare those in a commercial health department licensed kitchen. That seems very similar to me. And maybe it's scale is where the line is. Because is it like, I'm thinking like what like Desiree had when Adobe Apothecary was up running. She was making like baked goods and selling them both on site and then also to other businesses. Was to me felt perfectly appropriate in that site, which is in a residential area. It was on the back of an existing commercial business, but it was like a C2.
So
right.
that's a good maybe food for thought for us is how we're structuring intensities. Because right now, residential is a good use. It just we have residential use everywhere.
Yes.
So in this instance, if it were neighborhood commercial, we would essentially say it's permitted in neighborhood commercial acceptable areas.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't want to exclude it from central commercial zone potentially.
Yes.
So if it's grouped, you have neighborhood commercial in central commercial zone, neighborhood retail in commercial or central commercial zones. So basically, you can go anywhere that's a higher intensity, but we'll limit what the lowest intensity is. Or do we want to be that specific that we want to isolate where high intensity things should be and lower intensity things should be, and they're not mutually exclusive? That would be a question for us a little bit. But the yes if as many options as possible is basically it's permitted in anything that's more intense down, and we just restrict where it can't go.
Yeah.
Basically, is that things are permitted everywhere except the ones that we say these are too light.
Yeah.
We remove them from those.
And I think that does make sense for those things, particularly the things that we constantly talk about we need more of and don't have room for. Offices, that's a huge one. And then small retail is another one. And to me, it makes sense to sort of say, have fun, in all of these areas. Like
the market. And that's very much kind of a form-based code, which is to say, as long as the impacts are regulated and we are willing to let the market take over, the Euclidean zoning is taking a backseat. I have mixed reactions to that. There's a lot of there's communities that, and depending how we handle it, function just fine that way, and others we separations carve out. Is what we can get with that is runaway effect, the highest and best uses.
Yep.
The more freedom you have, the more chances for disproportionate use.
Yeah.
And so I've actually, prior to this experience, was like, some of the ways to get what we need is to actually overly regulate where they can be. So it is the option, the things we want, that is the only option comparatively to, well, there's all the options.
Yeah.
Then the highest best uses are going to take over, not necessarily the most needed. Those are philosophical elements.
Yes. No, good reminder, good thing to talk about. But yeah, that's kind of, that was my feedback. And Carolyn's sort of reflected some similar things. Let me see. I would say something to add, which would be relevant before our next meeting, is recommend adding a plaza or something like that to definitions of civic gathering space, was a note that she had.
Great.
In parentheses, my dream would make a little public town square somewhere.
Very lovely.
So here we go. And then a lot of stuff in residential about dwelling, live, work, not intended to capture remote workers or used for businesses. Like, is that accurate? What do you mean by live work units? And then are twin homes and townhomes the same thing? No, but townhouses are not in there. Yeah. And then difference between a bunkhouse and on-site employee housing. What is it?
Would you like the answer now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I thought that
No, you're good.
On-site employee housing can really take any form. That could be a single household residence, that could be apartments, or it could be a bunkhouse. And bunkhouses is where we see multiple lots of rooms, sharing
Yeah.
bathroom, sharing kitchen.
Cool. And then I'm trying to see. Suggest changing mobile food vendors to mobile food / beverage vendors to better capture drive-through coffee spots.
Drive-through coffee.
It's its own thing now. Mobile
Oh.
food vendors would be like food trucks, right?
Yeah, we're home occupations and vendors. We're gonna extract from this jumble. Or I guess I could insert it, but we've been doing a fair amount of work and we're already to the use parameters stages of those guys. So working them in, that'll take some to our process right now. So I don't want to dwell on that too much, but that's a wonderful point. Vendor that has a drive-through element.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and that was an issue too with which it obviously exists on the ground now, but there was a big issue when snake oil came before the commission because all we had in the code was drive-throughs like a Wendy's, which is a much higher intensity use and would not have made sense on the corner by T&H. I think there should be something that's like, I don't know what you would. I think we have enough now and probably will have more in the future of those very, very small time limited drive-through eating or drinking establishments that I still think there's not so drive-through coffee shop is under drive-through. I do not think that should be in the same bucket. As far as if we're thinking of future Euclidean zoning for this. I feel like that's more in the food truck realm, frankly.
It came in on axles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really the construction and definition from the state will have a big factor in that. They also have massive exemptions from your standard customary safety and health regulations because they're meant to be mobile and occupied by an owner. So we'll have a static situation because basically a commercial site that is exempt from all those. They don't have bathrooms, they don't have ADA access, they don't have to apply a number of things, which typically we would not encourage unless there was a reason we're like, nope, this makes sense to allow this crossover in this instance.
Which it makes sense in those instances like Wicked Brew, it is on another commercial site. It's in the parking lot on an existing commercial site.
And
they oil into the parking lot and existing.
They've satisfied what is that like stick built.
Yeah.
So they're not mobile technically. They are fixed.
Yep.
Snake oil, same thing. They're a bit cross because they got approved in two different ways. But yeah, that is something to consider for us. Can the mobile vendor have mobile perimeter access? That's an interesting thought. Which is kind of your point. I think that's what you're getting at. Can a mobile vendor have a drive-through aspect? And I don't think the answer could be no.
Would their state licensing be different? That may be one way to look at some of this.
I don't think so. I don't think it would. Other than what becomes challenging is the state preempted municipalities from regulating vendors altogether. So the only way we currently regulate vendors is we're not regulating the vendor, the truck. We're regulating the land on which those private property vendors exist. So the land underneath them we're regulating, but not the truck itself. So that would fall into category if we permit them, if they have a circulation path and they do everything they need to do, sure, you can have a drive-through with your vendor if it could, but
I think if somebody were to come to us right now with that, I think we could
probably
make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether, like you say, it's becoming popular enough, maybe it deserves a standalone designation.
Yeah.
But we are working, basically extracting the business license code to see what is land use in this that shouldn't be just in the licensing code. This is actually land use. That's where the crossover's happening.
Yeah.
So a lot of this will be accessory uses. Is kind of where we're going with a lot of these.
But that's really hard too, because then you have, obviously it's the county, but like the Taco Time that's there now, it is a drive-through. It's also a mobile building technically that is on the existing site, and it's not yeah, there, something with drive-throughs is my feedback. I don't know what the answer
Yeah,
is.
they just were thinking about coming into the city and we looked at a site for them and I think it would have worked, but it was too crowded. He just would have had to meet the
Yeah,
drive radius. So I don't think that's too much of a barrier
okay, cool.
right now, but that doesn't mean
Yeah,
mean that we shouldn't carve it out because obviously
but I know like when we're looking at zoning, drive-throughs right now are not allowed in all the commercial zones. They're not allowed in C1 and C2
Mhm.
was the issue.
And there, well, yeah, and there's a distinction between drive-throughs, which is like, oh, a bank has a drive-through. Any
Oh,
given thing,
yes.
any given thing can have a drive-through in these zones, and then there's drive-through eating establishment. Is that the other?
Drive-through eating establishment.
Where you could just throw drive-through, it could drive-through planning authorizations. Like you could do that if the zone allowed. So that's a bit of a silly current existing situation.
Yeah.
Where I think we just get rid of that altogether and say this type of use parameter. You can have an eating establishment and then you have a drive-through. Here are the regulations that you would need to meet to make your eating establishment drive-through or your anything a drive-through. It's just regulations to offset.
I forgot about that. I have drive-through as a accessory.
Oh,
You could apply it
Uh-huh.
drive-through coffee.
okay, all right, yep, that actually covers what I was talking about. Sorry, I did not understand that. That's it for me and Carolyn for now, but Johanna, I'll forward you that email from her.
Yes, wonderful. Okay. And I'll send out a reminder of what I'd love for y'all from next meeting.
That would be great.
Next meeting.
Can we use the printer at the city? Because I don't have.
For a nominal fee.
Okay, is that okay for this evening as far as discussion? All right, future agenda items.
Okay, we've got a special exception to landscaping, the Moab childcare campus.
Oh yes.
We've got probably Red Rock 2 coming back with their landscaping, and then Red Rock 2 coming with their shared parking agreement. And that is what I have for you so far.
Cool.
Oh, thank you.
The 26th is the next meeting, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I have down. Just making sure.
Yes. All right. I don't keep people here. I will adjourn the meeting at 9:01 p.m. We haven't had a meeting that long in a long time, but we also have never had that many agenda items.